Let's say hello to our next guest on the show. We have Mayuresh Joshi now joining in, Head Equity Research at William O'Neill. Mayuresh, good afternoon. What a day it's turned out to be, right? Absolute slam dunk across the board. Let me ask you about the PSUs first. Have you been out in the market, buying for clients or telling clients to buy any of the PSU stocks that are now down 35, 40, 50% in some cases from their peaks?
Afternoon, Surbi. No, I think we had a few positions, both in the banks as well as the defense spaces. But I think we exited those a few weeks back on two counts. One, as per our methodology, as we look at it at MarketSmith India, the move was quite stark. I think they were significantly higher from their 200-day moving average, which is a very, very broad gauge in terms of how we look at the risk parameters and assessment factors thereof. And the second element also was that the valuations had become a little bit more dearer. So to that extent, I think a few names that we carried between the banks and the defense names, we have booked that out. Whether we enter again at this point of time, I think let's let the market settle down. So I think if they do settle down, I think a few of the PSU names, maybe in the power space, where the EPS ratings are looking solid, or some in the banks as well, where the expectations of earnings growth still seem to be pretty stable and strong, may be looked at. But at this juncture, I think we are out of PSU names, as I mentioned.
The PSU positions entirely, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. This just explains the sentiment out there, right?
Mayuresh, what have you picked up over the last 2 or 3 days? The source of this selling, because the mutual funds seem to indicate it's not that they've seen a lot of redemption pressure. In fact, money continues to come in. So, who is it that's selling in the market that's caused this kind of a mayhem?
Not really sure, Rima. I think what I've been hearing also when I've been speaking to a lot of my friends in the market, brokers, a lot of consultants as well. I think a lot of leveraged positions are probably getting unwound at this juncture. So I think the recent action that has taken place on a couple of brokers and the deleveraging or the leveraged positions which are probably getting unwound, I think that might or seems to be the probable cause in terms of such a sell-off that you see. But I think the sell-off probably is looking very, very broad-based. So I think outside what it probably meets the eye, I think there might be a couple of more reasons to that, but very difficult to pinpoint. But yes, I think the primary thing that I probably am discussing, or the discussions are cropping up, is that a lot of these leverage positions are probably getting more unwound, and specifically at the broader end of the market.
Mayuresh, ITC, that's the other big event of the day, right? So what do you think? A lot of people feel that perhaps the overhang is over and done, and maybe the stock's underperformance will end now. What's your view?
So two things here, Surabhi. I think one, in relation to the stake sale itself. Yes, I think it's been, the names will obviously come out end of the day, but a lot of interest has been evinced by domestic institutions, and to that extent, the kind of move is a very encouraging sign, because the supply has been fully absorbed by the markets. But the other element now that the markets will look for post that the deal is over is the core earnings growth itself. Now, cigarette earnings have been extremely strong. Volume growth has been resilient. And therefore, cash flows, both in terms of the cigarette business, margins holding up, the other FMCG business, hotels business doing exceptionally well, are all positive indicators. However, I think the move that ITC is now embarking upon in terms of more product lines, more products being expected to introduce over the next few quarters, and a large part of capital allocation expected to take place. I am now willing to look at numbers, and this takes me back to where the earlier growth phase came through, from the cigarette business to the other FMCG business, where a lot of capital allocation was done, and ITC actually moved in a very, very, very tight consolidated range for a range of time. So I think if more capital probably flows into these new businesses, there is a strong possibility that the overall earnings growth might get crimped because of lack of earnings momentum seen because of investments being made in the vertical. So I will wait and watch. The earnings, the RS rating is a little bit on the weaker side as we see it at MarketSmith India. So I think good move today, but I think earnings is something I'd watch.
Mayuresh, do you look at LTI Mindtree? Now, from the beginning of this year to date, LTI Mindtree has underperformed Nifty IT by nearly 20%. And that's quite significant in just, 2.5 months. There have been a spate of recent exits, the latest being the CFO, and brokerages are concerned that maybe these recent resignations may put the merger-related synergies, could jeopardize it or at least delay the synergies. Your thoughts on LTI Mindtree?
I think those are probably the basic moot points on why the stock is probably underperforming, Lima. And therefore, I think there has to be enough of sort of clarity to come through. Numbers generally have held up pretty well for the mid-cap IT sphere. But I think a lot of stocks within the sphere are moving significantly higher above their key moving averages as we see it at MarketSmith. And the second element in terms of how earnings growth is expected to play out, obviously I think both in terms of dollar and constant currency revenue, it is expected to be reasonably stable. Margins are expected to be stable as well. But my take is that let's wait for numbers. How Q4 numbers probably come out for LTI Mindtree. What we probably like on pullbacks, or we'll wait for pullbacks, are stocks like Persistence as an example. They have moved significantly higher. Any sort of significant pullback onto this stock can become a good buy.
Okay. All right, Mayuresh, shall we leave it on that note for today? Thank you very much for joining in.